Hey, welcome back. Second iteration of the show. Hopefully you guys will pop over to that. I'll go over, and I don't know if that just went away or you guys will have to hop over. Anybody who finds me in the chat, I'm gonna fire this up and try to bring you guys over and go. I guess I can share this or tweet it out. Does it happen? How's it go? Share. Twitter. There you go. Try to get this out. Ta-da! Pop this back out. There you go. Oh, good. Okay, so it popped back in. Oh, it created the thing again. Excellent. Okay. Link to the other stream. Spinning here. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that freeze up. It was weird. May the 4th be with you. Whoa. Cool. All right. Yep, I'm back. I think it's working. I'll pretend to freeze. Wouldn't that be messed up if I pretend to be frozen? When people pop over and they finally get in the chat room, like, oh, okay, thank you. It's like, it's frozen in here too. Hopefully you guys join me back in here. Hop back into the chat room, guys. Thank you. Sorry, I messed with the Amos. I apologize. I'm gonna try to take some calls on the show. If you can't hear it, you can hear, like, turn on WCPT to hear the callers. If and anybody's watching this later, I apologize. So it should come as no surprise that William Barr behaved the way he did. Every sign pointed to that's exactly what he was going to do, and it should come as no surprise that Donald Trump will take the word of Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un over his own military, over his own generals, over his own intelligence, over his own cabinet, even the people he appointed himself. None of that should come as a surprise to anyone, and it is shocking beyond measure when, you know, the occasional Republican really tries to find their way to defending it, and the only ones that really do consistently are clearly people who either need it for re-election, seem to have some sort of compromising material floating around on them out there somewhere, or are quite frankly cult-like followers of Donald Trump for God knows what reason. But they exist. We're going to try and take a caller now. Lady B, who do we have in the world of callers? Excellent. Steve from the Gold Coast is calling in. I'm going to relate to the chat room what Steve says. Hopefully you guys will hear it, you'll get it after that. So, hey, Steve, go ahead.
Because of his policy.
Right.
So, obviously, what are you going to do? Are you going to, stock up now, or are you going to buy things later, or 6 months from now when they might be 20-30% higher in terms of cost? So that tends to bolster the economy. Secondly, earnings are nowhere near what they need to be versus the gains in productivity of the American economy. So where's that going? It's going into the pockets of the people at the top. It's not going into the pockets of average Americans whose productivity has skyrocketed in the last 20, 30 years, but they have not seen that manifest itself in terms of real income. So, the old adage about, we created X number of jobs. Yeah, that's true. I have 3 of them.
Yeah.
Still holds true. Americans are having to work longer and harder and aren't seeing much gain for it. So
yeah, for less.
Take that into consideration. And then,
yeah.
Exactly. And then you're absolutely right with regard to this whole Barr thing. Let's just take a step back and not be partisan, but just an objective view of what happened. Once this report came out, the administration, Trump, and his supporters took a bow, claiming, okay, this exonerates Trump. But as so many people pointed out, wait a minute, let's wait and find out what are the specifics here. What are we talking about? And as this story has unwound, moving forward in the weeks since the release, what we've seen is, story after story. The aides to Muller, Muller himself, people who are analysts who have looked at this have said that, a different special prosecutor could have come to a different conclusion. This is not a dead bang case in which everyone agrees that Donald Trump should not be held criminally liable for
right.
anything. No, this was the opinion of one man, and that looking at the evidence that we have, someone else could have very reasonably come to another conclusion.
Well, the only difference in I agree. I think the only real difference between where Mueller came to, his conclusions, as it were, and another prosecutor may have been, is that maybe another prosecutor would have been less of a direct rule follower and said, I know it's DOJ policy not to indict a sitting president, but legally there's not a huge precedent around that, and no one's above the law, so I'm actually going to recommend charges. That was the only difference. If you look, and this part drives me crazy, and this has been, and Steve, I'm curious what you think about this, but when the Mueller report came out, everybody immediately jumped to the second volume, largely because of the, even though we cannot prove that he obstructed justice, or we are not coming to that conclusion, we also cannot exonerate him. That was the big thing. So everybody was like, whoa, 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 that means evidence. That means there's evidence here that is overwhelming on some front as far as they're concerned and deserves more investigation, which is what also leads a lot of people to believe that Barr scuttled the Mueller investigation early. But the whole, there was no collusion found and no collusion and there was no collusion. Okay, first of all, collusion is not a crime, so a prosecutor is never going to look for something that isn't a crime. What is a crime is conspiracy to defraud the United States, or conspiracy to defraud the elections, or varying crimes within there, and violations of the the Foreign Agent Registration Act, for example. And what Mueller ended up doing was not finding that there was no collusion. What Mueller found was a dozen people who worked with Donald Trump in his campaign had either violated FARA, lied to authorities about their interaction with foreign nationals, had exchanged information, campaign information with the Russian government. In the case of Manafort, giving polling data, Konstantin Kilimnik, and all that stuff. Found conspiracies amongst campaign workers, high-level, first-tier campaign workers that worked on Donald Trump's campaign. And the only reason, and by the way, those people got indicted. Some of them are going to jail for those very things. They also had intent and motive based on their financial holdings and their financial dealings with Russians, and created an entire web of other stuff, which, there's 12 other ongoing investigations that are redacted in the report in that section that have a lot to do with that part of it. But essentially, he's working his way up the chain to a godfather-like control figure in the form of Donald Trump. And the only thing that kept Donald Trump from being thrown in with the rest of those people was the idea that he did not have the political circumstance, will, or the mechanics to be able to force Donald Trump to speak to him under oath, and that doing so would have caused a bigger flap and shut down the other parts, which were much more fruitful, during the process. When you're pulling the Manaforts and the Flynns and the Gates out of the system, that's got value to you as a prosecutor, and he's not even sure, even if he was able to present charges, that they would go anywhere because of who is handling the investigation now, right? So Mueller it didn't make a no collusion discovery. What he discovered was multiple instances of conspiracy between high-ranking officials in the in the committee to elect the president, to borrow a Nixonian phrase, and illegal engagements between them and Russians, and in some case people from Saudi Arabia, and in some case Chinese, but literally either selling or trading data for benefits that would come later. And he never got a chance to sit down and interview under oath the President of the United States, or verbally interview him even off the record. All of his answers were written on paper. Most of them are I don't recall, or contain I don't recall within the answer itself. So this idea that the first thing is no collusion is an absurdity if you simply read it. Just read it. If you read the volume 1 of the Mueller report and you don't come to the conclusion that Donald Trump was hiring some of the skeeviest individuals he could find to set up back channels to Russia for him, that, by the way, he was counting on financially paying off later, at what point do you care about this country anymore? Especially if you're one of these people that, like, Whitewater was a travesty and they should have gone after him, and Vince Foster and people, you know, the Clintons are baby eaters, and if you go down that road and that stuff matters to you, this should matter too. And it doesn't, because you know, this view that somehow they're going to benefit from what he's doing. When look at people's tax refunds, look at the, you know, effective wage stagnation. Look at all the people in Ohio who are losing their jobs. Look at you know, what passes for a job these days, and how many people have to have a side hustle to even make normal bills. So that, you know, the first part, volume 1 of the Mueller report, needs revisiting. And we're at the break already, and I don't know if I lost Steve. I can't, like, are you still there, Steve? Did we lose you? Is he? Yeah, cool. So, I mean, I think, yeah, there you are. So,
okay, can I,
go ahead.
I wanted to comment on just a couple of things. This past week is reflective of exactly what you just said, because when asked about Russian interference in the election, you know, the president wants to instantaneously deflect to there's no collusion, or there's nothing here. You know, we've already established that the Russians attempted to interfere with our democratic process in 2016. But Donald Trump doesn't want to talk about that. Instead, he wants to jump forward to, we have not established that there was a crime committed in which he could prosecute me or my administration.
Right.
With regard to anything with regard to regarding this Russian collusion nonsense, and that's different than did or did not the Russians attempt to interfere in our election.
Yeah.
That's already been established.
There's no question about that at all. Right. Right.
This is the problem. We've got a foreign power interfering with our election. Instead, no, let's pass on information. And the fact that something isn't a crime doesn't mean it's not wrong.
Yeah. Well, half this stuff, you know, and that's the thing. And we got to take a break, and I appreciate your call. We definitely are over the point or whatever. But you know, that seems to be the fallback among a bunch. And Mazie Hirono did that as well. She was like, "Is it right? Is this right? Is it, you know?" And she said, "This is right." Well, Barr's never going to answer that, because his concern as head of DOJ is not whether something's right. It's just whether it's a crime or not. And he obviously has no moral checks and balances internally about any of this stuff. He believes power exists for power's sake, and that's his belief about the, you know, sort of the supreme executive branch or whatever, which has been, by the way, a plot line of the Republican Party for a very long time. And ironically, because these are the people who apparently fear a nanny state and don't believe that, you know, they believe in small government. Apparently, they want government so small it fits in one man. That's their. I mean, there's no smaller government than a monarchy. So, and that seems to be the plan. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. So I don't know if you could, YouTube audio is a little hot. Well, thank you. All right. I don't know if Stephen muscled and how's Adam's apple. I'm trying. Like his phone was muffled as it often is anyway. You like to say snitty now? It's a good one, yeah. Hey, Julie. It's 7 p.m. Thank you for being interrupting dinner. Yep. Hey, everyone, I was out to dinner. Apologies for being. No, we're glad to have you. Word of the day, skeevy. Thank you. Oh, Putin has the unredacted report already. Just count on it. I got no tolerance for people saying that nobody's doing anything about it. Exactly. Sounds good, Hal. Picture is low resolution. You're always sharp, though. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it. We're doing pretty solid. You know, in some ways, whenever I'm in these situations, you know, the radio is awesome and it's fun to do, and I'm glad we're, you know, as we blaze through another hour of the show, it's always, you know, gorgeous. But I often look forward to the post show with you guys because technologically it's a lot simpler, just for that reason. I do get that joke, Carl. We need Medicare for all. I don't think people realize how important Hillary's 90s proposal for a single-payer plan actually was, and how many people died because of the thugs' lies about it. You know, hey, man, butter emails, right? Now, I don't blame the Republicans. They were never going to vote for anyway. I vote the faux-gressives who were like, I just, you know, I can't bring myself. I don't like her. There's just something I don't like. She seems... You know, you know, I don't like her laugh. You know, the irony that all it took for people to vote for George Bush over Al Gore was, I'd like to have a beer with him. And yet, all it took for people to, oh, we're back. So, looking at the Democratic field, by the way, you know, we got to check in with our side, and there's been a lot of movement, obviously, in the last couple of weeks. There's polls all over the place, and you know, not surprising that on many fronts, like according this is the latest stuff so far, as we keep track. According to the Hill, and I'll have to check which. It's a Harvard Capps Harris poll. Pretty steady poll, not off the charts, but according to them, Biden leads the field by 30 points. Joe Biden holds a 30-point lead over Senator Bernie Sanders in the Democratic presidential field. If you remove Bernie Sanders because he's not a Democrat, it punches Harris and Warren higher. It seems that curiously enough, the only person that Sanders is stealing numbers from is Elizabeth Warren. And, you know, just a curious aspect of that. 44% of Democratic voters surveyed said they were most likely to vote for Biden in the 2020 Democratic primaries. Sanders coming in second at 14%, while Kamala Harris placed third with 9%. The survey results show a surge for Biden since he launched his presidential campaign last week. A Harvard Capps Harris poll survey from March pegged his support in the primary field at 35%, though he hadn't yet entered the race. He was already at 35% before he entered. Poll results are largely in line with other surveys conducted in recent days that show Biden widening his lead in the sprawling Democratic primary field. By the way, be on the lookout for what appear to be gaffes on the part of Joe Biden, slips of the tongue, things that seem antithetical to, courting progressives to guarantee his spot, because he's so far ahead of that what he is now shooting for is on a national level getting crossovers. That part of it. And somebody asked in the chat room, did I trust polls in 2016? Yeah, technically I did. There were state-to-state ones that are a problem, but Hillary Clinton still won the popular vote by 3 million votes. So the polls they weren't polling the Electoral College, and the margin was always thin. That's why you never give any ground. I've been saying this for ages, like this idea. Good Lord, So and it does. By the way, I'm just telling you where the state of the field is currently, and this may inform your support of one of the people who's in the front. It may also transfer your support to someone who's in the back and decides they need more attention. Maybe you go, oh, hey, Biden, Sanders, and Harris are in front, so I need to go donate to Warren or Buttigieg or whatever. The idea of polling is not to tell you what to think, but to tell you what the general public thinks. And if you adapt that to what you're thinking and you take it with a grain of salt and you look across a field of those, of variant polls that go on, you'll get a baseline that tells you, where the attention is going. Let's see. A liberal friend, so Seattle Susie Q in our chat room saying, a liberal friend is on a Republican conservative Facebook page with many never-Trumpers. They are saying they will never vote for Trump, but could never vote for a Democrat except for Biden. Exactly. That idea, that crossover, that aspect of this is not going to be a destabilizer. And by the way, I love Elizabeth Warren and I love her policies. I think she's a smart woman and she's growing as a campaigner. She's developing skill. We're watching her turn into a more capable campaigner as this goes along. So as the debates happen and all this stuff, you may find her pulling forward in this, especially as she, on the debate stage gets to show off to a larger crowd. But if anyone has had their standing in the field tainted by the label of socialist or socialism, it's been Elizabeth Warren. Because she's understood to be a Democrat. Most of the people who support Sanders aren't necessarily Democrats, they're just supporting him within that. But in a lot of ways, the Democrats that support Elizabeth Warren shy away from that label a bunch, according to the polls. And a lot of them, by the way, a lot of Biden's support, a lot of it comes from minorities within the Democratic Party. So this idea that the diverse field itself is somehow being betrayed by his entry into the field is an absurdity, considering who is actually supporting him in the primary. And again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that a large portion of those who identify as conservative Democrats are African American and people of color across the board, and even a reasonable amount of the LGBT community. They refer to themselves more frequently as conservative Democrats than your kind of what you would think of sort of your average middle-of-the-road suburban white Democrat, who now uses the phrase liberal more commonly. So, I mean, it is a fascinating view of how people are absorbing this giant field of very capable people, by the way. Even Fox News just put out an article, that they believe that the size of the field is a guarantee that that Trump will win because there's so many Democrats entering. But in the generic ballot, nameless Democrat against Trump, the majority of people are saying that that's what they would do. So, check. Biden is not the way to go. Tulsi Gabbard is the way to go. Biden is way too much of an elite. His working man routine does not match his record. Yeah, I'm going to disagree. So I love Warren and Bernie as the most progressive, but I will vote for whoever seems to be performing best during the debates and appealing to the most Republican Democrats. Overall, we must win. Exactly, and I think that is largely what they're showing this time around, especially. And I think it behooves everyone to not trust the polls and act like, well, we can coast. I'm in a blue state, and again, I talk about this all the time when we're talking about voting, but and we got to take a break in a minute, but understand that if you live in a sure state, you're in a red state, you're in a blue state, no matter what you do, it always seems to lean that way, and you're like, hey, there's no point in me voting because it's going to go that way anyways. Understand that if you're in a blue state and you vote blue, but you're like, I don't have to because it's going to go that way, you vote to the mandate. You add your voice to the pile because then the instigation of those policies becomes easier because they can go, millions upon millions of people voted for me. I trounced my opponent. I didn't just skate across the finish line because I was from a blue state. We overwhelmingly support what we're trying to do. You have to do that. And if you're in a red state, you got to chip away at that idea that it's a red state, there's nothing you can do. Go vote for the other person or whatever. Every vote that chips away at that win, is a nick on Thanos' face. You have to do that. So we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Yes, smash that like if you could for me on the YouTube page. I really appreciate it. Don't forget you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/Hal Sparks. We got a couple of new Patreon subscribers this week, and I'm very happy that they're joining us. And we'll talk about that when we come back. We'll be back right after this. So, Joyce Kehoe just joined us, and oh, good Lord, oh my God, it's loud. Got to put this over my ear. I'm going to go deaf. Joyce Kehoe just became a Patreon subscriber, as does I'm not even going to Chris Lacagnina. Yeah, I think I got it right. And of course, our beloved Can't Stop Lying. Thank you, brother, for doing that, joining us up. Janice Bauman, Amos and Femi Barrow, both on behalf of each one of them. Thank you guys so much, Amos. I appreciate that. And of course, Jude and Michael and Julie Jones, all you guys who joined in the last little bit, and Ginger, Hal Vickery, of course, Wes Webb. Thank you so much too, and Charles, you guys, I love you tons. It's terrific. We have 27 patrons now. We have 12 since we started this push to try and get patrons on there, which is really fantastic. I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate it. I look at all these right-wingers especially who basically live off of Patreon. Their entire studio, and they have a producer and tech engineers and all this stuff, and they run it completely off of Patreon. It boggles my mind. Think what you think about Jordan Peterson, but the dude makes somewhere upwards of $70,000 a month on Patreon. Do you know what kind of empire I could start with that kind of money on? Are you kidding me? and so the idea, yeah, very well, that may be the case, Sixes, but it exists. You know what I mean? And our side just simply does not, there's only a couple people that really push for that. There's only, maybe, David Pakman, to some degree, the Young Turks, I guess, operate off that. But as far as, the liberals, that's it. So as we grow this and as we try to actually turn this into something, and I'm able to hire a producer, get better gear, so we have a more rolling, the Empire of Hal is not a bad idea. I kind of like that. Especially on Star Wars Day. I don't know how I feel about it in that context, but okay, great. Okay. Excellent. I'll grab a couple of them. I don't know how Yeah, we'll peel through them. That'll be all right. I'll manage. I'll figure out some way to get the audio to. I don't know why the audio into this thing doesn't want to work to go in there. Drives me a bit nuts. Figure it out. Yeah. Because I'm not doing anything wrong. Dig it. Maybe there's one. Well, no, I can't. Maybe let me try one solution. If I can, I'm tethered to the table, so I can barely move. Got to grab my backpack and see if there's one wire that maybe could solve this. So, Lady B, we've got some callers on the line. Who do we have there wanting to talk to us? Oh, we have Ike. Excellent. Ike, welcome, brother. I'm spectacular. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Cool. Yeah. You go out to the chat room, Carl and Zelda and Amos and Duck and Michelle and all of them. That crawler gets hard to follow for me. Things go flying so fast. A lot gets past me, but I try. I don't type real fast either. And I invite any right-wingers out there that want to have honest dialogue to definitely step up to the plate or up to the mic, either one.
That's right. We can talk about this stuff. We never, you know me, man. The only time I ever tear into one of these people is when they try to gish gallop me or lie outright and just be a jerk about it. But I can talk policy with just about anybody, and I think there's value in that. Right. So go ahead.
Right. Yeah, and I caution them that I've been seeing this QAnon alternate thing that they've been pushing on YouTube and elsewhere, and I'm sorry, but you guys, whether it's Uranium One or the Clinton Foundation or back channels with Russia, let me just point out that's all been investigated to the 9th degree.
Yep.
And there was nothing in it. You're being fed a pack of lies. And the one biggest one of them all is where you continue to say that the Steele dossier, somehow or another, that this guy was hired by the Clintons.
Right.
The Clinton campaign.
Yeah.
He was hired by an agency that does opposition research. And originally that agency, that company, was hired by the Washington Free Beacon. And it was in conjunction with, I believe, what's his name out of Florida? Starts with an R. Rubio. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, Rubio was the one who originally hired this group. But beyond that, a lot of the Steele dossier has been backed up with investigation. Bill Barr, when you get down to Bill Barr, the people that knew about him was from the time that they brought him up to have him confirmed in the first place. Mm-hmm. The Democrats had no choice in that. They were going to be outvoted one way or the other. It didn't matter what they voted. The Republicans won, but that's who put them in there. Actually, Trump wanted them, but the Republicans were going to go along. I think the Republicans are being blackmailed by the money they took from the NRA, which is yet to be fully investigated. But that involves Cohen, who's going to jail Monday, and $30 million of Russian money that came through the party. And, if you remember back, it also has something to do with why they ran to Russia, and they were in Russia on July 4th, and, where they shouldn't have been. I believe it was July 4th. There's too many Russian connections that are running all through this, and this is why I brought up this question to you, and I don't think you understood what I was trying to ask you. Mm-hmm. If all else fails, if the House brings forward the impeachment, which I fully expect them to do, it's constitutionally their duty, and I expect them to do it.
I agree.
After the hearings and all the information is brought on out, and they refer all this stuff to the Senate, if the Senate breaks down and refuses to impeach the president, then at that point, they actually are obstructionists, and that means the system has failed because the judicial system won't step in, the Senate won't do their job, and that leaves no other entity other than he's a designated commander-in-chief. At that point, it becomes a military matter. And I do see where constitutionally the military could step in and do a military-type impeachment against the commander-in-chief. He's unfit for duty, and they can take him out.
That's I agree that is materially, from a constitutional standpoint, that's the steps. I think within 18 months of an election cycle, that from the election day that we're kind of in currently, I think what's more than likely going to end up happening is some variance of impeachment hearing is going to be going on during the lead up to the election, and they'll say within, I don't know whether it's primary season, because Bill Well's going to primary the president, whether he gets the ability to, to get on the stage with him, or if Trump has to go through a primary at all, will be a fascinating part, because the Republicans are operating in such a way that they intend to stop that from happening. But during that process, they may say, well, we've got to halt any kind of hearings in this, in an inversion of the Merrick Garland rule. We're getting too close to it to actually be able to talk about it. But during that time, that's the window into, does it chip away from him? If he loses, he is staring down the barrel of indictment as a citizen. And that's a reality, and the Republicans know it's a reality, and it has nothing to do with the federal government, and it's not. The bigger fish to fry, and is he going to face the issue that he about him basically being a Russian stooge? I doubt it. I doubt he will, simply because, and this is why and I'll let you finish. I think if we look at what wasn't done about the lies leading up to the Iraq War, for example, by Bush and Cheney, if that wasn't dealt with, there's no hope for this. And that's why precedent matters. The precedent has already been set in chasing that. But the difference will be is that outside of it, on a state level, Donald Trump has committed crimes that we're discovering through, and that's why he's so afraid, and that's why he's trying to stop the Deutsche Bank, voluntary paperwork and the subpoenas from them. Why he's suing those things is because he knows he committed run-of-the-mill finance crimes on a state level that would put anybody in jail for 50 years. This is, and his daughter is married to a guy who was on the same financial level as him, who went to jail for this kind of shenanigans in New York. He knows it's possible. This is what scares him. On the national security level, there's 100 good reasons why you don't throw the president in jail, even if he did gnarly stuff while he was in office. That's the unfortunate part. But on a personal level, Donald Trump knows that he can get away with it.
He was. Okay, so don't try to sell me
right.
that bill of goods. But the way I see this playing out is I expect the impeachment articles to be done and handed over to the Republican Senate.
Agreed.
By the end of the year, no later, before Christmas.
Before the January primary season. They
dump that on the Senate, and then the Senate goes into the year of the that next year. Goes into it with it on their desk with plenty of time. All they have to do is to hold their hearings. Now, if they refuse to, I'm not buying into this idea that there's some limitation, whether it's this stupid rule, guideline from the DOJ. That's got to be adjudicated, and it's either a law or it's not.
Agreed. I agree.
And then the Senate's going to have to live with the idea that they're not going to carry forward on the impeachment, and that's going to cause a bigger bloodbath. And just lastly, the last thing I've got to tell you is I've for the chat room and everybody listening, that's part of this blue wave.
Yeah.
I've gotten 7 people. I've gotten 7 of them registered.
Yeah.
I'm working on 3 more, and they're not in my district. 2 of them are. The others aren't. They're in the next district over. Okay?
Yep.
I'm in the red district, and I'm registering people. And that's what we've got to do. Y'all got to get active and bring the new voters in. So when the time comes, if we haven't already gotten them, we can damn sure flood these polls. And I'm telling you now, if we can flip Lindsey Graham out of South Carolina, you know, the only good thing I can tell you about South Carolina that's ever come out of here is Colbert. And it damn sure ain't Lindsey Graham.
Right.
You've got to get rid of him, and I'm working hard to do it.
Yeah.
I appreciate y'all's time.
Absolutely, Ike. Love the call and glad to have you in the chat room. We're proud to have you around, and I completely agree. I will say one of the things that Democrats need to focus on, and what I think Biden will open a conversation about, whether he ends up being the nominee or not, whether because there's a lot of time between now and there's a lot of stuff that can happen throughout the entire primary season. But one of the things that Democrats need to focus on is non-voters. And old school, just uninvolved non-voters, because they're a huge voting bloc. They're apathetic, and the problem that they often have, unlike independents who are largely Republicans who are embarrassed by their George W. Bush vote and may now be embarrassed by their Donald Trump vote and may vote the other way and that vacillate all the time. Non-voters themselves often are principled human beings, and you can reach out to them based on those principles and try to convince them. If you try to use outrage, they tap out. And Ike's saying in the chat room, register somebody. Exactly right. Get somebody on the boards. So, and don't worry about any of the, sort of activist level voters who might disagree with you about this kind of stuff. The point has to be get names on the board. Start reaching out to people who don't or never vote, and tell them that even if you have to give them a history lesson, but don't go for outrage, because it's not going to work. Because if they're not outraged right now, that's not how they're reached. It doesn't mean they're incapable. It doesn't mean they're inhuman. It's just not how they operate. Either that, or they're so overwhelmed in their own life that they don't even think about stuff outside their tiny little bubble. So, part of a reason why we did so well in 2018 was the volume of voters. Part of why we will do well in 2020 is because of some of the good news that's coming out about the gerrymandered districts being overturned. There's been a couple of stories about this week. As a matter of fact, that'll be part of the happy ending coming up next. We got to take a break right now. Yeah, we're over the break. So we'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. We're here every Saturday from 9 to 11 Pacific, 11 to 1 Central Time, noon to 2 Eastern Time. Tack that into your calendar. Put it in there. Join us. Get in the chat room. Talk with us a little bit. Infotainmentwars.com is our through link on there. You can follow me at Hal Sparks on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram at Hal Sparks. And nothing could be easier. Smash that like, too. If you're in our chat room, give us a thumbs up on the show. We appreciate it. We'll be back. Ohio probably has more voters suppressed than any other state. It's hard to measure because that's a lot of that going around. Thinking about putting my Trump doll and the baby in the birdcage on top of my car. You got to reach the non-pissed off too. Hal, you made me want to vote again. That's awesome, Benny Loco. Well, I hope so. I will do it, Benny Loco. Mm-hmm. New York AG will put Trump crime family in the dock just to salvage their reputation now. I think there's a very strong chance of that. And I think there's also a lot to that NRA story, too, as that peels out. I don't think that's Lindsey Graham's story, but there's a bunch of them out there floating. And if they get, they're not just going to dissolve the NRA. They're going to get a big look at their books during the process, because they're going to fight back, as they should. And thank you, Robert Reynolds, for upping your pledge. That means a lot. Holy smokes. So that I consider that an added pledge as well. That is really great. And EO, thank you so much. Look at you guys joining today. We got 3 new ones today, including Joyce. You guys, love you guys. Man. Yeah, I'm going to try and, again, I'm trying to do more promotion around it. It's a lesson I've been slow to learn, but hopefully I will get better at it. Thank you, Benny Loco. I try. If I can get people who don't want to vote normally to vote just once, I feel so much better about life. And again, I don't even care if honestly, I'd be disappointed, of course, because I believe in my side of things. But if you are on the other side and you vote and you weren't voting before, good. As long as you do it for a real reason and not just because, like R on your jersey versus a D on your jersey, but you actually care about what you're saying in that regard. Vote against me. Vote against what I'm saying. It's fine. I just be part of it. Then at least we're having a real conversation. What was this? And Obama screwed up in not pursuing Cheney at all because he wanted to prove he wasn't the black president. Well, I think it was bigger than that as well, but we can talk about that later. Welcome back. I think we have another caller before we get away. And Lady B, is that the case? I can get one more caller in before the end of the show.
We have Jim.
Excellent. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Al.
Yeah.
I met you when you were at the Riviera here in Las Vegas. That was the last time I was at the Riviera, and then they demolished it.
Oh yeah, the old Riv. I'm gonna miss that like grounded cruise ship bilge pump smell that the Riv had. That the whole downstairs was like an Italian cruise ship that had run aground and everybody had been living on it for 3 days. It had its own distinct odor. Yeah. But go ahead.
In Las Vegas.
Thank you.
I'm a news junkie.
Great.
I watch the news every day, but I love your analyzing every week. You bring the dots together,
Thank you.
I love it. And I have to wake up early in Las Vegas. 9 o'clock here is when your show comes on, and I have to wake up early on Saturday morning to listen to you. But that being said, my question for you is, all these candidates running for president, I campaigned for Bernie Sanders, but when Hillary got it, I campaigned for Hillary years ago. And all the candidates we have, most of them are really good. There's a few strange ones, that Congresswoman from Hawaii.
Couple of stragglers, right? Yeah.
My question is, do you think having 21 people running for president for the Democrats is a good thing or a bad thing? Now, the people I talk to here, a lot, what you were just talking about, registering people to vote. A lot of people know who's Dancing with the Stars next week, who's in the Survivor, what football play, but they don't care about politics. I'm a political junkie, but when there's too many people, I'm not going to vote. Now, do you think it's a good idea to have? I like the selection. We got some. I donated to Elizabeth Warren. I donated to Julian Castro. Beto, I love, and Buttigieg. I like all these people, and I like the selection we have to choose from. But don't you now, Joe Biden? I was here. He campaigned here for Lucy Flores, who's accusing him of inappropriately touching her.
For sniffing her hair, and right.
He's like not my uncle, my grandfather. Well, I'm 66, so he's not that much older than me.
Right.
But I like Joe Biden. I love him. He's a very good person. But it's time for younger people to get in there with better ideas. What do you think about this election?
I appreciate what you're saying. I think there's a couple of things. One is I think a lot of people are looking for a steadying factor of somebody who was in there under Obama who will kind of carry forward where we were going with with the Obama recovery, which Trump has been benefiting from the protection of the Affordable Care Act. I think the cancer moonshot aspect of what Biden was going for dovetails very well into both the shoring up of the ACA and the creation of Medicare for all over time. I think that's in many ways the way he's going. I think he has a very good working class plan. That doesn't seem to be anti-growth for people, which I think doesn't, because while Warren and Sanders both have great populist messages, the idea is it's an us and them version of it, and Biden seems to be taking this tact of, look, we can become prosperous and you can become rich in this country. You're allowed or whatever. And when you get there, you should pay your fair share in taxes, unlike these people. But it's not a divide. They're not these mystery of people on a mountaintop that you can never join, like the mystics, in 300. You know what I mean? There is an element to where I think he mixes those very well. As for the wideness of the field, I think you're right. I think it's too watered down right now. But I think what you're looking at is about 10 of them jockeying for VP, and about 6 of them jockeying for a more national recognition, knowing full well that they're not going to win, but it will help them when they're running for their Senate seat or their House seat next time around. There are obviously some people that will scuttle right away, but I think both Warren and Buttigieg, I think, are getting their names on the board in such a way, and they have a future to them. Both of them are young enough. Obviously Warren's older than him by a significant amount, but both of them have a good couple of decades of politicking that they will be able to participate in. So if they don't make it, this is just a win. There is no downside for either of them really, working for this. I think there's a very strong chance we'll be looking at a Biden-Harris ticket or something equivalent there, and there's plenty of people to choose from in that regard as far as that field. I also think in terms of if it doesn't endanger a Senate seat that's important, for example, like Kamala Harris, where we know that the governor will put in a Democrat, and we know that when they have an election to replace that person, that Democrat will be more meaningful. They'll run somebody else who's terrific as well. That there's a good reason to put that person, if not in the VP slot, let's say using Harris as an example, but imagine her as head of the DOJ. Imagine her, Biden being president, but Kamala Harris getting the AG spot in this country, or for God's sake, the head of the FBI, which I think both she's eminently qualified for. That I think is one of the benefits of the broad field, is that you look at what did Obama-Biden as a ticket, what did they do with their main rival? They incorporated Hillary Clinton in. They made her Secretary of State. And that in and of itself is, I think, a strategy the Democrats can even talk about. I think the first person to do it, and it probably will be Biden, is to go look at the wonderful people we all have here or whatever. And if you choose me because of my experience and what I'm capable of doing, I'm going to pledge to you that I'm going to incorporate as many of these voices into my administrations as will have me. Because there are people up here who I can see running, being in charge of healthcare for this country. I can see individuals up here who could be in charge of the FBI and who could be in charge of the Department of Justice, who would make a great Secretary of Defense because of their balanced viewpoint and how we agree. What we agree on is so much, and what I might bring as a candidate is strategically how I would approach benefiting this country in my experience in office. Like, that's how you do it. You never have to cut down anybody else. The only time this field's going to get too big is when they eat each other. And anybody who starts eating the rest of them, and I would argue this is the problem I have with Tulsi, anytime they start eating any of the other Democrats, you're out. You're as far as, from my point of view, and this is not me, the radio host, me, the comedian, me, the, actor, what have you, endorsement-wise, but me as a voter, as on an individual level, the first Democratic candidate I see to attack a fellow Democrat instead of the issues or Donald Trump or any of his sycophantic followers, that are their, equivalent as senators or as House members in the government, you're done. You're done. That's and I appreciate the call. I think we've only got a couple minutes left in the show, and so and thank you for getting up early and joining me. I do the show from Vegas quite often myself, and one of these days I'll do it at a local coffee shop or something and have a little get together, because we had a couple of key listeners there in the Vegas area. We'd love to have you guys be able to sit nearby and interject during the show as well without having to call up if you want to get up that early. Now, when I do the show in Vegas and like I did today, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning getting prepped and all that kind of stuff. It's like regular radio, and I still have a show tonight. I had a show at 10 o'clock last night, kids. I did the late show, and I got a late show tonight as well. It's going to be a party. And we're going to have, by the way, we're almost at the end of the show. It's been a fantastic show in general. Thanks to all of our callers, Steve and Ike as well. And thank you, Lady B. I don't think we had any audio issues to Chicago this time in that regard. I don't think I went robotic once. Amazing. It's incredible. I don't know what it was. You guys fixed it. Whatever you were working on this week, you did it. So, let's hope it keeps that way. Love you guys so much. We'll see you next time. Stick around on the YouTube channel, and we'll be doing our post show. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Stay tuned for Dick K, and we will see you next week. Cool. All right, I'm signing off, Lady B. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. It's hard to hang up when I hear my own music. Cool. Look at that. And I don't need my earbuds because we're off on there. And we'll get this thing. And then I think we're plugged in on this guy. And so, and we're all mic'd up. Oops. Oh, I forgot I had this stacked up. How do you deal with inebriated audiences? A couple ways. One is, quite frankly, I don't get as many inebriated audiences as other people because of the nature of my show. But also, most of the time, comedy clubs, even the drunk people are there to have a good time. So I don't mind them if they're a little hammered. I don't hold anybody to a hey, you're out in public standard in a comedy club. Not anti-wealth, just such wealth shouldn't influence the political system, whether it be needed for obscene funding or elections or bogus law, i.e. Citizens United, revolving doors into lobbying. Agreed. You should do the coffee shop thing in LA too. I agree. I will do that as well. No Dick K harmonica to walk you out. Yeah, that's usually, the Dick K harmonica doesn't come in until 5 minutes after the news, when I've forgotten all about it and they don't pump the news my way and I've forgotten that I'm plugged in, and then all of a sudden, send a pot of coffee to the table, right? Yeah, we'll do, we got to start doing some tweet ups and that kind of stuff. The presidential primary is like Highlander without the gore and a healthy exchange of good ideas with a strong ticket for president. Agreed. Yeah. Yes, callers, you guys do rock. It is true. We'll figure out these. Yeah, so I think, Brad saying I agree, Hal, shun them. I just think there's an element of, you can go back to doing what you were doing. Be a congressperson or a senator in your district or whatever, but if you're here to eat your fellow teammates in this process, which, if we learned nothing, it was that chipping away at Hillary Clinton's already, like weakened political and sort of national image by people made it easier for Donald Trump to win, period. End of story. Just don't do it. So these Patreon streams, are they going to be hangouts? Yeah, basically, yeah. They'll be private streams, EO, for just the Patreons. I'm working on that now. So I set it up to be able to do it. I don't know how to test it, though, and I don't want to test it on your backs without getting it working. Wasn't there something like 12, 16 guys running in GOP primaries against Hillary? Yeah, but there were also, 19 other people were running against Trump, too. They had a huge field. 180 watching. Let's get the likes up. Yeah, that's right. Everybody, hit a like. We got 81 likes, and that means 100 of you haven't given a thumbs up to the show yet, or give it a thumbs down. All interaction works, but thumbs up better. But still, yeah. And thank you for the super chats, you guys. I didn't get a chance to spot those out, and it doesn't let me scroll back through and see in the YouTube app version of things. So bless you. I know Benny Loco did at least a couple of them. So whoever I missed, I apologize. I'm yet another Vegas fan. Not fair to make a teacher get up early on a Saturday. I know it's cruel, but you do it, and I appreciate it. That's what I meant against 45. Oh, I see, Jim. Yeah, gotcha. How the Patreon clips have been great. Thanks. Yeah, I'll do a little more behind the scenes and stage kind of oriented stuff as well. It'll be a good time. Here, you guys want to? Here, hold on. Let me see if I can. I don't want this to fall over. So here's. We'll do a Patreon video for you guys right now, so you kind of can see how I do it. They only let me do. It only lets me do it in 15-second clips, right there. So this is the low-tech version of what we got going on this time or whatever. But hey, patrons, this is behind the scenes of the hotel version of the show. There's my iPod Touch I do the radio show on, and I'm actually on the YouTube right now. Look at that, and coffee. Hey, patrons, this is so that goes. That just the hotel version of the show. There's my iPod. So there you go. So that's how I do it. And it only lets me do 15-second increments. I'm not quite sure why that is. I guess it's just to keep the volume down, or you have to upload videos in another format or something like that. But wow. It's very meta. That's true. The difference between the GOP and Dem primary election process is the most GOP elections are WTA, and most Democratic elections award delegates proportionally. This is true. One built with CRISPR for the cartels, glyphosate herbicides, the other is cactus. What's happening? I missed that. Hemp life matters. Agreed. I missed the setup for whatever the CRISPR thing was. Amanda Palmer does the same, but uses an external what? An external camera or something? Howception. Yeah, it's howception. It folds in on itself, right? Turn off or change the channel on the TV, please. Why is it distracting? Sorry. Oh, an external host. Gotcha. Okay, Michelle, be right back. Sure. How do you mean she uses an external host? Do you mean to store her videos or something? Or she has somebody else do videos for her? Or that'd actually be kind of cool. I could get somebody who, if they can get to the app and just fire away. My girlfriend could do that for me. Summer could do that. It's a free comic book day at your local comic book shop, kids. If you want a free one for yourself or a loved one, go get it. Oh, that's awesome. Why did I not? Oh. La Canina. I see. Thank you, Zelda Chick. Trips everyone up, but you did better than most. Happy to be on board with the Patriots. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. What's happening, Cheyenne? Happy ending. We know this isn't an ancestor simulation. Why? Because computers crash. Duh. No, that's not why. And by the way, those computers wouldn't. If you were capable of computing like this, the redundancy on it would be extraordinary. And plus, how do you know it doesn't crash every night, and that's why we go to sleep? What happened? The other thing is, games in a video game characters don't think, move, or advance when the game is turned off. So technically speaking, every second the game could have shut down, and then it starts back up 10 years later after they fix the computer, and we'd just go on not knowing. Somebody watched, I was on local radio here driving everybody crazy with those ideas. Yeah, it's a good time. Everybody loves a happy ending. It is true. So what do you think of the Biden-Warren ticket? I think that'd be a great one too. I feel like, I don't see it not working. Like almost all of them. It just depends on who gets along better or whatever. I do think I like Harris, a lot. I mean, more and more, and especially when she gets to asking questions. That is a smart woman. She's tough, and people might have issues with what she did as a prosecutor, but she didn't do it out of nefarious reasons, I don't think. I think she has a heavy sense of justice, and it informs the way she acts. The grandma and grandpa ticket. You know me, man. I'm not ageist, and age ain't what it used to be. Trolls already jumped into chats with spoilers. Yeah, they do that. Don't go getting smart on me. I'm simming now, right? Actually, there's what I'm doing for Free Comic Book Day. I'm going to check out comic book via library app. Hoopla. And there you go. But Harris skills are most suited to be Attorney General. That may be the case, but that doesn't preclude that she couldn't be. I just, and again, she's that smart. She's a capable person. She could be a capable president by all measure. And if the sad part is that Donald Trump is now the standard. And George W. Bush, anybody on the Democratic side is qualified in that regard. There are certain things they have to bring to the table as far as attitude and leadership that people are going to need, but as far as management and being able to be capable politicians to deal with what the stress of the country, there's a bunch of them are good. And Harris is a little too smart and boring. I don't know that she'll be that boring when she gets. I'm curious to see her on the debate stage, and man, when she was asking him questions, she's got some sly stuff going on. She's aware, she's smart, she's running a strategy, and you got to appreciate that. Yeah, thank you, Benny. Love you. That's so awesome. What about Biden 4-year and younger VP for the next 8 years type plan? Total 12 years for Dems. I think that's kind of the case. Although he wasn't going to run. He was originally going to run a single term, and then on The View he said he was going to do both terms. Excuse me. But the goal should be a 16-year plan, always. I mean, I'm working on Harris now. Just a great woman. Yeah, you're working for Harris now. Just a great one. Yeah, that's awesome. I would rather have Harris give up her seat for POTUS or VP in lieu of a locked-in Democratic senator to replace her. Well, she's gonna. That would be both. You would benefit from both with her because you've got Gavin Newsom in office. He just endorsed her, by the way. Harris would embarrass the president, organized crime about women, but he'd love it. Maybe so. I'm working for the weekend. Isn't everybody? Kamala Harris chewed Barr up and spit him out. Yes, she did. Pence thinks that Vajnik is getting impeached, has a team in place to take over. Oh, there was a point where, he got a dog. They got a dog and made a big show of it because he's like, all presidents have dogs. Trump doesn't have a dog. Yeah. Hal, do you think there's any other reason that Miss Lindsay did a 180-degree about-face on Trump and something other than being compromised? Well, like I said, his all signs point to his support of Trump being integral to him getting reelected. So yeah, I mean that's enough. We were all just so sure that Hillary was going to be our president. Plans get changed. Yeah, but a lot of people coasted through that, Wes. I don't think they're going to coast this time. A lot of women coasted through that election. A lot of Bernie supporters went, well, what's the difference between Trump and Hillary? There really is no difference. And that thought, if you still entertain that thought, you're a psychopath. You're a crazy person, or you are irredeemably dumb. It's one thing to disagree with Hillary's policies versus Trump, or decide for your own selfish reasons that he's better for you than she is. But the idea that there's just kind of a shrug difference between the two of them is insanity. There's not enough money in the world to repay you for the strength I feel emotionally. House Parks chat. My faith in humanity is slowly building. Oh, guys. Thanks, Benny Loco. That's beautiful. Yeah, I agree, Nacho Tube. I don't think Harris is boring. I think she's like, man, like, I love her when she questions people, and I can imagine her giving, I'm going to really enjoy watching how she shows up on the debate stage. So, Hal, were you standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona, with 7 women on my mind? Harris misses on nomination. There's VP, AG, or Chief Justice. That's true. Harris would make a great Supreme Court justice. Yeah. Take it easy. That's right. Guys, Arizona is such a strange place. First of all, like 4 of the biggest cities here are all in the same place. Like Tempe, Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Glendale. Like these are like 4 of the biggest cities in the state, and they're the same city. Like, I don't know why they name them differently. It makes no sense to me. They're just attached to each other. It's just a sprawl. It's not like there's a valley separation or some major piece of geography between these things. It's so silly. Would you ever do a Daily Show style thing? I've been back and forth about that with my agents over the years, and I've said no to it just because it ends your acting career forever. And I'm not willing to give that up, even if it's, it takes time between things and, you have to pick things. I started on Talk Soup, so and that's kind of on the boards. But ever since any other hosting stuff, I have to take with a grain of salt and make sure that it doesn't, eliminate 10 years of acting work, because that's what it does for most people. It's just it's just the nature of it. Things have changed a little bit in the last few years, especially with Netflix and other things coming around and the shift in the industry that might make it a little more possible. But there's still this hang up that if you host a show, you're not an actor and you're not going to be. And it's too important to me. So yeah, once a week is solid, and it also lets me, deal with all this political stuff, and we could discuss all this stuff, and it kind of make progress about it, and we actually, get some thoughts on the board. But at the same time, it doesn't, eat up my like a 5-day-a-week radio show. I get offered that a lot, guys. I get offered that all the time, and I keep having to say no, because it would just, it would mean not touring as a stand-up pretty much ever again. It would mean not being able to do, other shows. Like it's your whole life. So how was that a heckler in your uploaded video of your stand-up? Randy came back for the night. No, it was just a dude who went to the bathroom and came back, and I just started talking to him, and it was a nice little just improv with the crowd. I don't post a lot of my crowd work for my show, and choose freedom, Hal. That's exactly right, Benny Loco. Like you got, I do this because because I would rather come here as a personal responsibility than a corporate responsibility for you guys. And that's why I've been doing it as long as I've been doing it. But yeah, that guy, the person who was in the in the audience, it just kicked off a little story about names and silliness, and I just liked where it went, so I posted it. Oh, thanks, Kathy B. I often do get to San Francisco. I love Cobb's up there. It's one of my favorite places. And as a comedian, I don't know if you've ever performed there, but I've done 2 specials there, so I enjoy it quite thoroughly. Joshua Tree is terrific. Drove through there. I love Harris. I want to see her stay in the Senate. She is great. I just don't think we lose anything by her getting in there, because she will benefit, the country wherever she is, and we won't lose a Democratic seat in that state at the same time. So it's not like we'll lose it. So there you go. Arizona vehicle license is $150 for 5 years. Yeah, it's pretty sweet, but there's not a lot of people. Love the baseball clip you posted, and I'm a baseball. All right on, Michelle. Harris is a delight on talk shows. She's smart, great laugh too. Total opposite of Trump. Full disclosure, I think I may have a crush on her. Right? Understandable. played there 20 years. Oh, right on. For 20 years, or 20 years ago, or both, or what? Yeah, I guess technically both could be true, or neither. I love visiting the desert. I feel like I'm in Zelda. It's good. Go north, visit Orcasanti. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going back home after I do this, and I've got to decide, like, if I crash this afternoon and take a nap, which I will probably have to do because I got a late show tonight, I'll probably be wired after the show, and I might just drive back to Vegas tonight after. I haven't decided yet. Might sleep in and go in the morning, but more than likely I'll hit the road. Yeah, because I'm crazy, and I want to get, I want to get back home because I got all this stuff to do. I'm editing a video, and I've got like all this writing I'm in the middle of, and I've only got 2 days in Vegas before I go to LA, and then we got a couple final like tune-up rehearsals for the Nerd Halen show next weekend, which is at the Federal, and then the week after that is the 01 show, and so my plate's pretty full. So hanging around, for whatever reason, just blindly. With all the natural beauty in Arizona has, you think that people would be more liberal, but what do I know? Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where, being in the country, you take trees for granted. I think out here they take federal land for granted, but, yeah. And they don't want to hear from, turn off your air conditioner. Southwest Florida, I guess. Yeah, we'll make that out there. And by the way, if there's ever a club that you recommend to me, you can either tell me at houseparks.com on the contact page, or you can leave a comment in the page if you're like, I love this club, we go there all the time, it's really good. Let me know, because I'm going to places I haven't been yet or haven't been in a long time. I'm writing a whole new hour, so I'm trying to put as many dates on the board as possible right now. Yes, it's a dry heat. If you need to cure yourself of tuberculosis, this is the place to come. Please come to Aurora. Aurora, Illinois? Amos? Absolutely. I would say Barbara B. Mammoth is a big theater where I usher. That's cool. Do they have comedians there? Will Nerd Halen be getting video of the show? Yes. Gotta love Nadler shutting down the mic off Getz. That was very funny. I agree. Welcome back, Ike. Yeah, we can make Aurora happen. Richard Feynman went to New Mexico. His first wife had TB. Yeah, well, there's a lot of those like sanatoriums out here that were, like our historic sites now. I'm too pale to move there. Yeah, well, you gotta be careful. Like you step outside and you're like, I'm cooking. I'm actually cooking. I smell. I'm cooking. This is the smell of cooking flesh. This is not. Oh, it's warm out. I'm cooking. Officially Patreon. Oh, thanks. Look at you guys. Hit enter to Patreoner. Hit enter to that happens. I understand. Well, thank you. Let's see. Join that. Oh, wow. 29 patrons, guys. That's awesome. Look at that. I think we need about I think ultimately we'll need 100 to make the the goal of being able to hire a regular producer who can do the show with me, and fix some of the gear stuff over time. That our goal should be about 100 Patreons, 100 patrons on there. So I appreciate you guys joining us. That's so awesome. It's beautiful. I appreciate it. Oh, Red Pennants, Kathy B. There she is. Thank you so much. And we're over 100 in the thumbs up too. We got 169 people in here. We got 108 likes. So thank you for smashing the like. California citizenship is growing. Population 29. That's right. That's right. Thanks, EO. Gosh. Halavada. Right. That's the new Nevada. I got a rock or 4 patrons. You use Patreon too, Kathy? And I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's not like Rafe Fiennes, right, where it's pronounced Kaith. But I'm guessing it's Kathy. We got more bounce in California. That's true. Sorry if I missed an earlier discussion. Thoughts on Rod Rosenstein's involvement in the Muller matter, double dealing? Yeah, it turned out to be basically that his whole involvement was a farce. And I don't know if I don't know if there was a turning point or if he was always kind of a mole in the whole thing. But he was, and he never really moved on shutting stuff down because I don't think he had the power to. But he might have been just kind of sheepdogging a little bit, barking it within certain lanes. So yeah. Bye. Name, last name. Namaste. Be well. Seen Sebastian Manicon and Joe Coy at BBM for free, was ushering. Oh, that's cool. I do my band and my comedy. Yep, Kathy, not why. Okay, gotcha. Cool. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, Kathy, and what's made me really kind of like devoted to making it happen is just as a point of both pride and, it's obviously valuable for helping grow the show on a material level, but also this idea of standing up to these freaks that spout all this hate and nonsense who have like 10,000 Patreon subscribers is insanity to me. And so you got to put something on the board. I've always had a decent number of Twitter followers and followers on Instagram and that kind of stuff. That's always been legit, no fakers, no bought ones, all that stuff. So I feel good about that, the numbers of, like followers and people that have, on there. And I get a lot of doubled up and I'm on a lot of lists as well, so people don't follow, but they list what I'm saying, which is the same thing. You just don't get credit for it. It's super irritating. But, at least that's there. Rosenstein's a weasel or an ordinary Republican. I wouldn't rule out both. Really hated Rosenstein and he's McConnell's dinner pal. Yeah, there's definitely shenanigans going on. Hal, I will digitally video record you if you come back to Illinois. Awesome. That's a great idea. I'm for it. Barr is a puppet. It's getting ridiculous. This is true. Kindness never kills yet. All right. Any comments on the Poway shooting? Yeah, this should come as no surprise. My issue is obviously we have issues with mental illness in this country. We have issues with the availability of guns, and the kind of deification of guns is a big part of this. And there's tons of like baseline anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that just run rampant on YouTube. You will never run out of anti-Semitic, they control the earth videos on YouTube. They're just bottomless. And again, a lot of them, we'll get 1,000 views on the show today. We'll get about 1,000 just in general because you guys will be in here and some other people listen to the show or whatever. These things get 2.4 million views. And maybe I'm just being too sensible and I don't make, incendiary clickbaity thumbnails as much as everybody else does. But for God's sake, yeah. 111 likes, 1 thumbs down, 11. No, I'll deal with that. That's okay. That guy was really nuts, showed no remorse. I think we're also seeing a kind of growth of a tide of a certain form of mental illness, that is more akin to, well, they have suicide clusters. There's also homicide clusters. And the reasoning doesn't even have to be legit. It just takes on. So a blue patch means I'm about to talk to someone like Hal Sparks. It takes a lot of work. There's a pot place in Milwaukee and Devon and Niles and one on Maple and Evanston, but I think you need a prescription for CBD oil. This is most of the well, it depends. Narcissistic sociopaths have no true emotions. This is true. Why are you leaving your current job? What current job? Had an argument with MSNBC Joe because he was because as a veteran I used to use real weapons. Hate when you get them online without any checks. He had no issues. Yeah. These guys are reading the manifesto from the Norway killer. Yeah, and they spread. Look at they just had this study come out about the show 13 Reasons Why, and it measurably raised the number of suicides. This kind of stuff, extraordinary homicidal and suicidal stuff will always raise the numbers because and here's the thing, there's 330 million people in this country. Any large group of people has a 10% mental illness, like life-affected mental illness. There's a lot of, 20% that includes, sort of anxiety and soft depression and other stuff like that. But 10% is like legit, from schizophrenia to, auditory and visual hallucinations to, to debilitating phobias and body dysmorphia on a scale where, anorexia occurs, those kind of things, like debilitating levels. And so and the availability of messaging and stuff like the Norway Killers manifesto, that kind of stuff can lead those people down that direction. Now, they were going to go that way anyways. They just found a raison d'etre out of that stuff. But it isn't indicative of the greater society. But it is that is why we have a responsibility to kind of clean up our airwaves and clean up our act when we're talking about stuff, because those people are on the tipping point. And it is why the president should behave like a gentleman. It is why you temper your language. And he does play into this. So, yeah, there you go. Send Westboro haters to Westeros or Westworld. Untreated mental illness only gets worse through time. This is largely true. What are your greatest strengths? My deadlift? No. I'm fearless in terms of public speaking. It's one of the things that scares most people, and I have absolutely no limitations about it. Like, I have no concerns whatsoever. I can go unprepared in front of the largest crowd and don't care. And it's because I'm confident about it. It's not, it might have been based on arrogance when I was younger, but now it's because I know I can handle myself no matter what. Pretty big. There you go, Vinny Loco. I think we're both in the same zone. I think that's about what mine is. I think I did 375 that last time, whatever, so, but there you go. I think it's the result of society's continuing separation from each other and nature. The more you don't feel a part of the whole, the more you are able to become angry, abusive to others. It's always existed, though. People, no matter how small the tribes were, you always had outliers and people who disengaged and the like. So I don't think the societal shift exacerbates it. If anything, some of those people join a community, find community, need it so much, can't be alone, that they join, they feel anger and they feel depression, they feel separated from people, so they seek it out, and where they find it is someplace awful. Let's see, so which book, which movie, where do I see myself in 5 years? I see myself looking exactly the same and doing a better version of what I'm doing now. Hence KKK and white supremacist groups. Yeah, people need to clutch together. A gun buyback would cost almost nothing. This is true. And a lot of, cities do it. And the interesting thing, though, is that the gun buybacks, a lot of times, when they do those things, the gun manufacturers take those as like a challenge to produce more stuff. Just burning the old guns. Bill Cosby was a freak. He had a great video on prejudice. I public speak like a mofo. And yes, he was the entire thing based on a movie, Everyone with Issues on the Same Island. Yeah. I didn't see which, Charles, I didn't see which one, yeah, Charles Hayden. I didn't see which movie you were referring to. Oh, The Right Stuff. By the way, there's a Right Stuff series. I see. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Had to scroll back. What motivates me? Depends on what thing I'm doing. In general, I'm motivated by a sense of self, by a sense of, obviously, I, like everyone else, whether we want to admit it or not, are motivated by pleasure and pain quite often. What gives us pleasure makes us feel pleasure, and what causes us pain, the avoidance and magnetism towards or away from each of those traits. I am obviously, I do this show every week because I view it as an act of citizenship, and I think it's valuable, and I love I do get it something enjoyable out of the exchange with you guys and that kind of stuff. But I also feel like even before I was able to have a chat about it, running and being able to converse with you guys, it still felt necessary. Felt like something I could add. So yeah. Can you tell about a difficult work situation and how you overcame it? I love how Osama Lamgari is now interviewing me. A difficult work situation and how I overcame it. I used to do segments on a show called Umba Macumba on the Disney Channel during the 90s, and the production company that hired me to do it I had a deal with them for my sketch comedy group, and they had gotten an order to do these commercial spoofs, and they farmed them out to me, and I did them, and I kept wanting to meet with the people at Disney to kind of get a clearer picture of what they want to do, and they're like, no, we'll relate it to you. You just send us what you do, and we'll get it to them, and we'll, because it was their deal. I found out after working on that project for 2 years that Disney didn't know I existed, and that the company was telling Disney that I had that I didn't exist, that they were coming up with the pieces I was delivering to them in their own office, in their own lab, basically, in their own edit bays and whatnot. So they were paying me secondarily, but I wasn't getting credit on the show. And I later got credit, but only after they found out, because I went to one of the ADR sessions, because I was like, somebody at the office didn't know not to tell me to go and drop off tape, or drop off a disc with the music that I had made for this one segment. And so I went over there, and I was like, the execs were there kind of overseeing, because they like to look busy, and they were like, who are you? Hey. And this was before anybody knew who I was. And I was like, oh yeah, I do these. And they were like, you do? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, do you work at what you call it? I'm like, no. They just order them from me, and I make them, and I give them to them. How many have you done? 40. Well, they've only given us 40. Yeah, it was a shocker. And they weren't management. That was a production company. So, and here's how I handled it. I got a bigger order because of the Disney people that were there. They were aware of me. They gave me a credit after the fact just because I had shown up there, whatever. And I never worked with that company again. And I doubled down on, and stand up and focusing on my own career. So I didn't snitch. What are you talking about, EO? Thanks. Bill Maher looks like he smoked too much or something since he came back. Yeah, it was pretty. You're my favorite white guy. Aw, thanks. I try. That's my goal in life, to be everybody's favorite white guy. To be pretty fly in general. So, yeah. There was another question, too, and I saw that one. Yeah, Bill Maher again, it's weed, man. I appreciate that it helps some people, and I got no gripe against people who smoke pot necessarily in that regard, but there's a reason why I never do it, and Bill Maher is one of the reasons I never do it. Because there's certain limitations that it causes if you overdo it, and I'm not happening. Why was Lab Rats canceled? It wasn't canceled. It was actually extended an extra year. They just didn't go on with the Lab Rats Elite Force because they couldn't afford the kids, I think. The Raging Caucasian, right? That's my boxing name, Carl. It's perfect. Heroes don't have color, neither do we. There you go. Some people just take Maher too seriously. He's a stoner comedian. That's his thing. I agree, Wes. That's true. He's a little too handy. I don't think so. We all don't turn out like Bill. Right. How are marriage and more kids? I'm not married. I would love the idea of having more kids. I don't know how that's going to... Why do you work here? What do you mean, work where? At the radio station that I work at? What do you mean? As a woman comic, I'll never work with Mar again. Gotcha. Well, you know, he's weird with me because he brings, I think this is fairly well known or whatever, but he like hires women to go with him to events. You know, his escorts literally that go with him, and I got invited to the after party of the final show of the season, a few years ago, and his date, whomever she was Chinese, and I spoke to her in Chinese and just said hello, and we had a great conversation because she was like surprised anybody there spoke Chinese, and it was nice, whatever, and he kind of walked over, and I was speaking to her in Chinese, and he got really odd, got kind of jealous and a little peculiar about it, and then that was at the actual studio, and then we went to this to the after party thing, and they're like, everybody, like, come on over, you can go to the thing. I'm like, I'm not on the list, I don't want to go, because there's going to be security there, and I'm not going to go hat in hand, like looking like I'm trying to get into a party I'm not invited to. It's embarrassing, I won't do it. It's weird, feels weird. Like, don't worry about it, just come over, we'll make sure you're cool. So I roll over there, I'm like, okay, and I get out of my car, and you know, it's a line, and there's security checking people on a list that I know I'm not on. And then Bill pulls up, gets out of his car with this girl, and she waves at me, and she goes, Jilai, like, Lila, come in this way, you know, come over here. And she takes my arm with him and walks both of us up to the door or whatever, and I just went straight in with the two of them, and he was basically kind of grumbling the whole way. It was so awkward. So there you go. That's my Mar story for why he hates me. My wife and I had it with Mar years ago. I just can't stand the Islamophobia and his general arrogant attitude towards people of faith. Yeah. Well, it's just an atheistic issue, you know. Seth Rogen admitted on Colbert's show that he's stoned 100% of the time. Yeah, I get that. You're my favorite billion-dollar freshman. Well, thanks. Was Davenport a playboy? No, not quite. He was happily married. He was at one point, I think. You're a teacher. Yeah, let's see. Bill just got weird, probably thinking you were might be rapping to her or worse, making fun of him, insecurities. It's entirely possible. What do I like to do outside of work? I like it when I don't have work so I can get some work done. No, I mean, I go to the gym, I go play sports, I like swimming, I play music. I've turned most of my hobbies into careers, so sometimes everything feels like work a little bit, but all my work is play, so kind of balances out. Totally retired now. Amos and March don't even sub. Oh, there you go. Mar's time was probably past, but he's good enough now for Mar. You know. Well, Mar's lost it. Mar holds a position that's good, and and I've thought a couple of times about what a weekly show like that would be as far as worth. As far as a comedy show, it's not, it's not outside the possibility, especially as a weekly show. That's something I might entertain. We'll think about that. As we had it when let's see. He had it when he was on ABC and early on HBO years before he lost it to Icy. Do post shows, indeed, yeah. Could use more John Oliver. I appreciate that too. I think it's weird that between Oliver and Trevor Noah, like two of the the most like quintessential Daily Show people aren't Americans. Talking about the American political system and social system all the time aren't Americans. Now I think an outside perspective is kind of interesting, but that's always curious to me. Like there aren't American comics who can do it. That's the weird part. Of course there are. If you were an animal, which one would you be? Who says I'm not? Hello, handsome from Niagara Falls. Oh, well, hello. Mara would be glad to know we were talking about him. Yes, this is true. Hey, what I don't like about Mar is that his stand-up is no different than his political talk show. A few political jokes here and there are fine, but that's all he does. Yeah, and you guys know me. I like in my stand-up, I try to avoid, direct reference to political stuff, even though if I'm talking about like socio-political stuff, because I believe, if your problem's with the tree, you go after the root, not the fruit. And most people are just picking fruit off the tree and pretending they're not benefiting from it, which is what that is, And you have to go after the root of the problem. And the root of the problem, in most cases, is people's attitudes or people's preconceived notions about other people. So that's what you attack. That's what you go for, Sam B is now a U.S. citizen as well, right? They've all become it, but it's like you don't think they're like, natural-born Americans, of all colors and stripes and ethnicities. Yeah, yep. Very little politics at Hal's shows. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's you have to deal with the undercurrent that causes these things. Otherwise, you're not really accomplishing much. Larry Wilmore. Yeah, but they gave him a show and that lasted about a week. I like Larry. I mean, arguably W. Kamau Bell would be the closest thing right now, besides Mark, that's kind of doing that kind of a show that's American. And I love W. Kamau Bell. I met him at the Edinburgh Festival. My show was in the same venue his was after his show, or no, he was after mine, and so I would finish mine and then be gathering my stuff up when he was rolling in to lay his stuff out, and he had put his little slides up that he did and all that kind of stuff, set up for the show. He's great. He's a sweetheart, just a sweetheart. I disagree with him on a few things, but that's because we're both humans and adults. But in general, just awesome. What are you writing, Ike? Yes, what? The TV keeps creeping in. What? No, it's just. How does it keep creeping in? It's I don't even. It's over here. Is it that's the screen? Does it matter? I don't know. Is it making noise? Is that what's happening? I don't know because it's muted. I performed improv at Edinburgh Fringe Festival a couple years ago. It was awesome. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, it's cool. I'm thinking about taking a new show there and calling it Grossly Offensive, since that's what that guy got arrested for, or fined for being for telling a joke in the country. I'm like, don't look at the TV. Don't look at the TV. Grandma insisted that her sofa couch was a Davenport. Yeah, well, those exist. Yeah. Criminy, we're at 102 minutes. I'm going to run out of the space. Okay, so yeah, we're going to stay till noon. We got about 15 minutes left. I can certainly see that Bill Maher is a hot button topic. It's true. The TV in Hal's room is like a weeping angel from Doctor Who. Watch out. I don't know. Why is this? I don't understand. I don't in the monitor of the. I can't even see it. So maybe you can see more of the room than I can. That's weird. Will you go back to Kentucky and help end McConnell? I've been a couple of times. I've been tempted to run for office in Kentucky, but I just can't bring myself to move back there because I got too much life outside the state. But yeah. Stupid Trump is gone. Oh, I see. So Trump appears occasionally over my shoulder. I see. Can't see the TV either. How good. Okay. Yeah, it's a 15-minute countdown. Just get used to the idea. It's okay. And I'm just glad that all this this works. It's strange. Take on me. Take on me. All right. So, hello. Ladies and gentlemen, and all our ships at sea, how are you? I kind of like this one. This is, and I think Carl's right. This is a little stag film. I am planning on running for mayor. It's true, but it's weird. Is that fade? Yeah, that's gotta. The heck? That's not better. Where is it? There you go. This is better, I guess. You have a few cavities. Do I? Frank Fagluzzi again, right? Ghostly X-ray. You're much nuts. Well, thanks, Kathy. I hope so. Then Mitch.
We're going to do everything we can to stop Obama.
Yeah. What? 100,000 watts of radio power just sitting there. Oh no! Yeah, new Ron Jeremy movie. That's what it looks like. I like the Aha version as well. Go 1970s. Turtle speak. I think this is kind of like this one's. It's good. I mean, I'm in a hotel room. It's sketchy enough, right? But there you go. Nice nose hair. Oh, thank you. Not that much of it. I'm okay. Cold eyes, like a doll's eyes. You're gonna quote Jaws now on me? I'm losing this one. Red filter in the hotel room, very shining. Yeah, it's true. The mouth and chin is definitely derivative of the creature of the Black Lagoon. This is true. You ought to braid us. Get out of here, you guys. We're trying to guess what hotel chain you're at, and the lamp made me think Doubletree. Love the 8mm. Always love the filter. Yeah, it's a good time. Rum. Just speaking of jail. Okay. Do you do Patreon meetups? That's definitely on the horizon. Once we get enough where there's actually enough people to meet up with, I think. But yeah. I mean, arguably, now that you bring it up, Kathy, that might be the way to raise our subscriber numbers, is get people to sign on, and become, Patreon subscribers, and then they can, find out when I'm going to do one of those near them. My fancy phone can now put kitten ears and nose on my face. I don't consider that any kind of progress. You could be Khal Drogo's shorter twin brother in Game of Thrones comedy prequel, maybe. I suppose. I don't watch Game of Thrones, so I will trust you that that's the case. I found that the great thing about the Avengers, like all the Marvel movies, is that I've gotten as much emotionally out of it, seemingly, as my friends who watch Game of Thrones. But the time commitment's like 1/5. You know what I mean? I'm starting a Patreon, and I'll use it to go fund Hal and Urbix single codes. Excellent. I think that's brilliant. What's happening, Jose? I stopped Game of Thrones twice, once after the Red Wedding and again after Jon Snow came back to life. Well, spoiler alert, I haven't seen any of it. I don't care. Noon I'm straight to the comic shop from here. I think they're only open for an hour. Hopefully good free comics aren't gone already. Good point. Hal Sparks, you lower my blood pressure every Saturday. I love you. See you next week. Well, thank you, Pamela. I appreciate that. That's the goal. So we can be functional. Again, it's like one of those things like, can you, everybody's like, you got to get angry. I'm like, I don't know. You get angry if anger is a functional emotion for you. If it paralyzes you, then absolutely do not. What's the start of the Wonder Years? What would you do if I sang out of tune? Will you still love me when I'm 64? When I get old, losing my hair, many years from now, will you still be sending me a Valentine birthday? I feel like I should, you have to do it, the old how to do a, when I get older, losing my hair, many years from now, will you still be sending me a Valentine? Birthday greetings, bottle of wine. It's the easiest way to scratchy record sound. It's an old trick, but very effective. It also makes a decent fireplace, too. Crackling fire, you can do that. Makes me want to toast some marshmallows. sitting here in front of this crackling fire. If Thanos was in lab rats and won, then who would die? First of all, if Thanos was in lab rats, he wouldn't have won. Because I would have stopped him. Pow! And secondly, Douglas. if Thanos was snapped his fingers at any point, the only person that would disappear is Douglas. Tricks of the Foley trade. That's absolutely right. Let's sound a needle on a vinyl track. Me too. I was born in '64. Shh. Hey, where's my birthday shout? Oh, when is your birthday, Kathy? I didn't realize it was. Hal doesn't need to drink. No, I'm plenty weird already. Yeah. There, Hal. There you go. Still waiting to watch that show. Yeah, a lot of people play that catch up. We're like, I just wanted to be done. Like, oh, don't get me started. Like, I was so invested in Walking Dead, and then they like almost killed Glenn, and then they did kill Glenn. I'm like, I'm out. By the way, I noticed during my walk this morning, it appears that maybe ticket quota time saw 2 pullovers and 3 police SUVs in a short 25 minutes. I saw. So I'm driving here from Vegas down to Phoenix, and a lot of cop cars, a lot of cop trucks, like SUVs. One's pulled over on the side of the road, lights flashing. Slow down, make sure I'm doing the speed limit, which I was. But I get past, and there's no car in front of them. They're just sitting there with their lights on. I'm like, what the heck? Why are they just doing this? Oh, May 1st. Well, there you go. Happy birthday. And then I realized looking up, just off the road, there's a little calf from like a farm nearby who'd gotten outside the fence and was just running along the fence, and the cop car was just kind of tailing him. And I'm like, it didn't seem to be like, I'm going to get out and kind of corral him back over. Maybe he was sort of trying to herd him toward a gate, but I don't know. I think he was just kind of following along going, we got a loose one. I'm aware of the busy lives of all here, but please research RSO. Rick Simpson Oil here on YouTube. Educate yourself about a cure for cancer. Knowledge is power. There you go. I illegally watch lab rats on Daily Motions. Is that okay? Absolutely not. Do you have any serious medical issues? No, but if I did, I certainly wouldn't mention them on YouTube in a chat room. Social Security and Medicare are your friends, Carlos. This is true. There was in an episode where Hal shows his... What? There was a scene in an episode where Hal shows his bum. What? Which show are we talking about? Robert Gant was on Stephanie Miller's Happy Hour podcast last night. Said very nice things about you. Oh, that's sweet. Good man. Talk to pal, indeed. Daily Motion sucks. Well, either way, it's how they rip off people. Do I like Doctor Who? Indeed, I do. Well, I mean, I pick and choose some of the seasons. Now, they're not all equal to me or whatever, and I'll always be, a Fourth Doctor fan. So, yeah. YouTube, Google rips off people too. This is true. Yeah, a lot of my comedy is on there, and dag nabbit. How, do you have any pre-existing conditions or genetic weaknesses we should know about? What's your ATM PIN code? Oh yeah, that's a good point. Let me just write it down. I'll hold the paper up. That's a good idea. I saw about 9 police vehicles on the street, many officers outside particular house, some with M4s, kind of shorter barrel versions of M16 a week ago, and never seen anything in the news. Well, favorite TV dog is K9. Yeah, I loved K9 on Doctor Who. According to in Doctor Who canon, I am the inventor of the hyperdrive. If you watch, I think it's episode 4 or 14, I keep forgetting, of when they brought back Doctor Who, and Russell T Davies, who did Queer as Folk, was the main writer on there. When he came back and brought the show back in that regard, they had this episode at the end of the universe where they go and watch the end of the universe, and they were introducing aliens who were coming in, and 2 aliens came in, and he had named one of them after me, and it was like the inventor of the hyperdrive, Hal Sparks, and it was this like weird green alien. So that was really cool. Al, do you have any close family members who are doing time for violent felonies asking for a friend? That friend wouldn't be Osama Lamgari, would it? What is your greatest fear? I don't have any. What are your personal habits? Where do you live? What's your boxers or brief or commando? Depends on if I'm wearing a kilt. And Nerdy asks, is every copy of the sonic screwdriver made? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we were collecting them for a while for Summer's son. He was a big Doctor Who fan for a big stretch. And so it was hard to find a lot of that stuff. Now you can get any of it. Now there's so much Doctor Who merch. Christ. But back then there was nothing. We were digging around. Did you do Talk Soup? Yes, I did. Hal's cool claim to fame, inventor of the Hyperloop. It's true. Well, the hyperspace drive. It's the warp drive, I think, is what it was. Mine is snakes. I'm not scared of snakes. I know the difference between the poisonous ones and the ones that aren't. And I know not to sleep near the big ones that could squeeze me to death. It's just that, you know. Do I believe in visitors from other places? Yes, I've had visitors, and they've been from other places. Michael, that you played in Queer as Folk, he was laying down with his boyfriend, and he was nude, and he gave him a massage. Yeah, there was a lot of that in the show. Mm-hmm. No, there was no real sonic screwdriver. They had a lot of, tools that they would rent from this prop house occasionally for some weird stuff. That's where I know you from. Yeah, I know, Ike, I'm just messing with you because yeah. If Talk Soup was a real food, what kind of soup would it be? Just don't do cartwheels in your kilt. No. It's the witching hour. I know. Oh yeah, gotta go. Yes, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much, and thank you for all the super chats today, and thank you for the new patrons. I really, really appreciate the support, you guys, and just the encouragement has been really great. Those of you contribute that can is awesome. Those of you that can't or haven't yet or whatever, just the fact that you guys are behind it and are really supportive of that is a really beautiful thing. And I can't tell you, just from an emotional level, that it means a lot. It means a lot, you guys. So take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And we will see you next week. And I will be posting more videos this week and all kinds of fun stuff. And now I gotta go get some provisions so I can eat and then nap and get ready for a late show and then a long drive. So you guys are fantastic. I will see you next week, and we'll see you again. Okay, bye. There'll be patron videos from the gym here too later on, I think, because I got to go hit the gym again. And Tristan, you got to go. Why would you be a jerk like that? Buzz off. All right.